Let's bring in David Makovsky. He's the former senior advisor to the Secretary of State's Special Envoy for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. He's now a Ziegler Distinguished Fellow at the Washington Institute. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. So thank you so much for your time. And is it any surprise that we have seen this diverse and unlikely coalition collapsing just a year into its existence, given the fact that there was so little that really united the parties involved other than a desire to oust Netanyahu, which now seems to perhaps be backfiring?
No, as you pointed out, this was the most diverse coalition in Israel's history of close to 70, it's over 74 years. It was part of an experiment also to make sure that Israeli Arabs who have always voted in Israeli elections would be part of the governance, and they would be part of a spectrum of views, from the right to the left, in a way that Israel had never experienced before. And I would say it was the glue, yes, you're right, was the desire to unseat Netanyahu, but it was also a concern that the independent democratic institutions like the judiciary and law enforcement was facing erosion, and that's what galvanized people from across the spectrum to join hands in a way they would not do otherwise.
So does this lay the groundwork, in your view, on November 1 for a Bibi comeback?
Look, it's very possible. What we saw in the polling data was that more and more Israeli Jews liked the idea of Arabs being part of the coalition, and it was going very well, actually, until there was a spate of violence this spring due to disturbances around the Temple Mount. And what we've seen for decades now is that whenever there's violence against Israelis, here 19 were killed, the Israelis move to the right. Because they feel that's showing a sense of defiance to their perpetrators. So the government was, even though it was a very kind of hung by a thread throughout, actually there was growing public support. But once again, as we've seen over the decades, it was violence that, moved Israelis rightward. It might seem counterintuitive, but this is a trend we've been witnessing for a long time. And it repeated itself, and then these parliamentarians that were crucial to the coalition that held the balance of power, they, seeing the way the winds blows, so to speak, they jumped ship.
And David, just quickly, does this change the deliverables for President Biden when he arrives in Israel in just over a week? It's going to be Yair Lapid who greets him when he touches down in Israel. That will probably boost Lapid domestically, politically, but no doubt the president will be wondering just how much to invest in this new leader.
Right. Look, it's unclear. On one hand, I think it's a love fest between Biden and Lapid. They share very similar views. They're both politicians who've been able to galvanize people around the political center of their countries. And so, they'll have a very warm relationship. I think, though, people expect that. It's kind of built into the cake. I don't know how much of a boost Lapid will get. It's clear that Biden would like to see Lapid, get the job in November, because it's somebody who's very like-minded, having views about liberal democracy and the like. But whether he's going to be able to push him over the top is unclear, because what we've seen is that if an American president gives too much of a bear hug, there is somewhat of a backlash. So I think the president knows this is a political minefield and you have to navigate it very carefully, and I expect the president will do so.